Welcome to OM Report by Andre Alpa, your interview-focused podcast on topics from online marketing to internet startups.
All right. So today's OM Report is with Fishkin, nobody else, of course. Thanks again for showing me around Mosplex. It's a really great office you have here, and there is quite some room to grow.
Yeah.
So
we're thrilled to have you, Andre.
Thanks a lot. I really like the openness, and everybody all the groups organize themselves. So it seems that you push a lot of at least from the culture, I would guess that you push a lot of responsibility into the different groups to organize themselves.
Yeah, that's really the hope. I think that self-motivated teams, small teams working on individual projects and problems are the ones that produce the best work.
All right. So you really. I'm also impressed also by the number of engineers. Like I think more than half of the staff is engineers. So I think that's kind of underestimated when people look at a website because there's like so much content on it. So you would think there's like hordes of people writing, but of course there's the strong community pushing a lot of the content in.
That's true. I think all in all, our content team, we pull from various members of the team all over the place, including myself. But our content team is only 3 full-time folks.
Right.
As compared to our engineering staff, which borders on 80.
And then there's a product team working together with them and so on and so on, and the marketing team.
Product team, marketing team, operations team, and then the executive team. Yeah.
So what will become out of Moz? Because I see like so many different things that where I see like growth or development impulses. So you have like, of course, the strong background from SEO, but then there's this drive into analytics. There's a strong drive to analyze and to find out things within social.
Yeah.
And there's, of course, there's this omnipresent content machine. It seems like this overwhelming, like another search engine journal or search engine watch or something. Like you push so much content, and there's like these different growth directions.
So
what's it going to be?
Our big long-term play is we want to help people do better marketing. And in the next 4 or 5 years, that's really centered around creating software that helps inbound marketers specifically focus on channels like content, search, social, community. Those are our like big central value tenets. And so what you're going to see from Moz over the next few years is more integration between the research tools and Moz Analytics, and a lot more efforts to help people with content as social, but probably more of those starting 6 months to a year out. Right now we're very heavily focused on SEO. So we want to, in my opinion, we have lost some game to some competitors in like the link sphere and the keyword research sphere, a little bit in rankings, and those are areas that we should just be the best in the world at those. So right now, that's just what we're focused on, being the best in the world at those things. And then we'll branch out of SEO once we feel like we have a really strong backbone there.
I think also like in the region of like crawlers, like different tools to crawl your website, there's been quite some development there from like different angles.
Yeah, so Screaming Frog is the one that a lot of folks talk about.
But that's kind of like for the average Joe.
Yes.
Professionals don't use that anymore. Usually everybody switches to, I see
you
more
would be shocked.
You would be shocked. That's true, but then again, I like to live in my ivory tower. It's great there, everything's beautiful. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, but I see many people switching to professional software as a service tools that can, leverage stuff that, Screaming Frog will look like a toy against that. So I think can't grow that far.
Well, I think this is another area for us, right? We're very focused on the small and medium business, right? And the small and medium agency consultancy. If you're helping Amazon do their SEO, granted, Open Site Explorer might be useful, Fresh Web Explorer might be useful for you. A few of our research tools, you probably have a subscription because $99 a month doesn't mean anything to you anyway. But that being said, I would say there's a tremendously large group of people in that sphere, and they need consistent, reliable stuff. In the enterprise world, that's where you get very advanced, very costly, and very custom-made pieces of software.
Okay, so then, but if you say SMBs are your target group, you don't really mean like the hairdresser from around the corner or the barber or something?
No, so I differentiate between these 3 groups. VSB, very small business, that would be some,
but like the small online shop, that will be your target group, and then...
Yeah, and generally all the way up to, when they get to 500 or 1,000 employees and their website is, pretty darn complex, but not yet millions of pages complex.
Like a couple 100,000, that's kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
limit.
That's right around 1 million is where we put the cutoff. You have 1 million pages on your site, you're bigger than that, go to Conductor, go to, some of these other
You have to
services.
name German
Search
tool providers
metrics,
here.
yeah, absolutely. Right, go to those folks, right? And underneath that, that's where Moz is really trying to help. And we try and do that at a very affordable price, right? Like, you can subscribe for $1,000 a year, Conductor, Search Metric, you're gonna spend many thousands of dollars a month.
Yes.
So, very different story.
Okay, so is that also the reason why the content on Moz is so often so tactical? Because I tried to put content on UMOS once,
Yeah.
and I got the answer, it was way too tactical, and then I'm not going to say on which of the other portals, but one of the big other English-speaking portals, they gladly published it,
Sure.
and mine was not too tactical. So I'm working on another one, I'm going to try it for the second time soon, sometime.
I wish you luck. I wish you luck.
Your content team is tough.
They are really tough. They are really tough. I think what they've learned over the years is sort of what resonates with folks, what does well, what doesn't. We still misstep sometimes, right? We'll accept a guest post that we think we really like. It just doesn't work out. But our communities, they're picky.
Yeah.
They're really picky, right? They care deeply about like the kind of content that's being discussed. If it can't, if it doesn't help them do their job better, right that minute they can't see the instant value of it. Those thumbs down start showing up and nobody's sharing it. So we try and avoid that. And we really don't want our guest authors to look bad or feel bad.
Sure.
Right? So you publish
Probably
something.
they saved me from something.
Well, you publish something, right, on Moz, and if it doesn't resonate, people kind of go, oh, who's that guy? Right? And so we want to make you look good when you publish on Moz.
So maybe I'll be more lucky next time. I don't know yet. So okay, so that's why also the content. Okay, but then also that I can see the kind of the logic that the content is not so much like what enterprise SEO looks like, because many times it's you don't have topics like in big companies, because like in enterprise you have sometimes a problem of these, let's say, very specialized organizations. And then you have this ugly, SEO channel, which is so integrative, and they want to talk to product guys, and they want to talk to tech guys, and corporate communication and corporate design, and they want to, try to work with everybody, and like big enterprise, they're organized, very strictly, everybody's in kind of their silos, and then we come along and we say, hey, you got to work together, and they don't like it really. So how do you tackle, do you have that in kind of
We do have some content on that front, right? So you'll see some folks who've been enterprise SEOs and have written about that, but it's designed specifically for that audience. I would say, maybe 1 out of every 40 or 50 posts would touch something that an enterprise SEO would find that resonates with them and not with the SMB audience. So it is, I would say, more tailored for that SMB audience, but not exclusively, right? So SMBs, and enterprises are both going to get value out of posts on link building or advanced keyword research techniques or a conversion rate optimization case study, or the type of stuff that gets a lot of publication on Moz.
So how do you what do you think for the enterprise SEO guys, what do you think how to solve these things, kind of contradiction between this specialization within companies and this integrative SEO channel?
The real answer is there needs to be deep belief about the value of SEO from all these different departments in the enterprise and from the leadership, and then there has to be support at the rank and file levels in terms of people, engineers and product people and communications folks and marketing folks saying, yes, I will give my time and energy to this because I believe in it. That's very rare, but because it's very rare, it's also very valuable. And I think that's a beautiful thing for enterprises, right? Is that if you can get your company on board with it, woo-wee. That's a competitive advantage that 9 out of your 10 competitors, they will not be able to touch, because they don't have that belief system in SEO. They don't have that agreement to invest in it from the management and from the rank and file and all these different teams. So I love things that are a high barrier to entry. Anytime something is nearly impossible or incredibly hard to achieve, it's kind of nice, because it means no one's chasing you. Right? They're not going to catch up anytime soon.
Yeah. So also you have sometimes these very simple cultural clashes where somebody says, from product, oh, our product should look like Google, there should be just like this one little thing to enter, and then you tell them, well, if Google can't read what's on your website, it doesn't get it. And then like, how are these contradictions usually solved? What do you think? How do you discuss these issues?
The way I think about it is the product design.
Because sometimes these product people will say, well, Google should get it right. Why should I put the content on it? It's their mistake. They don't get it, what's on there.
Yeah, well, fantastic. So if you would like to lose all of the traffic that will go to our competitors, because remember, those people will still be searching. They just won't be finding us. So if you want to do that, be my guest, right? We can happily go out of business as the world shifts to using search to find things.
But the funny thing is, usually the companies are good. I mean, they have like a core that's good. I think the SEO would add another 5%, but then again, they don't see it because they don't know how much you're going to lose.
And hopefully everybody at this company has stock options, right? And they're all feeling the pain of not getting the 5% of new customers that quarter. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I'd say is these things can live in harmony. You can have beautifully simplistic, minimalistic design, but the one thing that product and design should do, and Google's a great example of this, is they should provide exactly what the customer, the searcher, the person who's landing on that page needs. If the person landing on that page needs only the most simple little input box, as you do with Google, then great. That's the right product to design, and that's the right way to design it. But very, very rarely is it the case that the only thing anyone landing on that page ever needs is one input box. That just doesn't happen very often. Sometimes, but rarely, right? And so, a good example of this is like the front page of Zillow. It doesn't really need too much. It just needs to say what Zillow is, how you find property estimates, how they get their data, and then there needs to be that one input box. So it's a little bit more than that. But all those pages, those landing pages that tell you about a neighborhood, tell you about a city, tell you about a specific home, there's a lot of detail people need in there. You can't have this hyper simplistic, minimalist design with all that data, right? Like how you balance those things, I think is where product design really comes into play. It's not about the simplest or the lightest experience, it's about the one that satisfies the user the most.
Yeah, I think there's also like all these different kinds of users. Some would like more guidance and some would like less guidance. And I think like product especially has a tendency, towards these, also towards ivory towers. They have like a certain kind of customer in mind, and not everybody's as advanced, as experienced, as focused, and as clear about what they want. And then more guidance would be good, and that's exactly where I think you can find a good compromise with SEO.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so you come around a little bit when traveling and doing speeches. What I was asking myself when preparing for the interview, which is a rare case because I usually do not prepare for the interview, so it's actually probably the second time I ever did. So what I was thinking, because you give so much output, and I know speaking is demanding. People are looking at you. People are putting a lot of expectation on you. They want something new.
People are looking at me?
No, I mean theoretically. It's just because of the mustache.
Otherwise that's it.
That's why I came up with a barber example. I'm sorry. No, but I'm thinking, to be able to produce as much output as you produce, you have to. I mean, it's not easy because you have to. Experience different things to be able to tell different things. Mm-hmm. So how do you, and then still, I would guess there's still people within the company expecting stuff from you, or are you limited kind of only to being this externally present?
No, I do a lot internally.
Speaker?
Yeah, I do a lot internally and externally. I think, so there's a few things that kind of are very helpful for me to help hack the presentation system. First off, it's something I've been doing for a decade. And so I have a lot of experience making presentations, giving presentations. I don't feel any discomfort on stage. It's not particularly hard for me to get up and give a talk. Making a presentation, I challenge myself to make what I hope are really good ones. And that can be very time consuming. But, I don't have kids. I spend my weekends usually building PowerPoints, right? Okay. That's what I do. And then I would say the other thing that's nice is because I speak so often, I can make, I'll probably make between 15 and 20 slide decks this year, and I'll probably give each of them 2 or 3 or 4 times, right?
And usually also when you give a speech the first time, you hear the questions, and then you can make it better, make
That's
it better,
right.
make it better. So it's a great incremental
And a lot of the times,
development there.
the first time I give a talk, I will use it to collect feedback. I'll do it at a smaller event,
Yeah.
and then I'll expand it, make some edits, and
I once
present it again.
did the mistake of trying to come up with a really great topic, and because it was a really prestigious talk I could give, but then again, the result was, I think, I wasn't as happy because it wasn't all thought through, and I was missing some, explanatory steps in between.
Right.
So it was,
Yeah.
But now I know I'll do exactly the same thing. First try it in the smaller round, and then look where you lose people, and then try to make it
And
better.
I like sending, it's very nice. I send my slide decks to our marketing team here
Okay.
a lot of the time, and they give feedback.
Okay. They don't just polish the graphics and correct your errors. They really give feedback.
They don't polish my graphics. My graphics are all me. I do all my own graphics, which actually can be time consuming too. But again, for years I was blogging and making my own graphics for that.
Okay.
And so I do it that way.
So how do you come up with a new presentation? Like, for example, you're working on something for your local university for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the topic? Because it's
Well, so I
not a
talked to
topic
David Mim a little
Yes.
bit here at Moz, right? And asked him who's going to be in the audience and what do they want to hear. And I had this idea, so that what I've been seeing in local a lot is for a bunch of local searches recently, there's almost been like this one brand dominating, right? Like they have an organic listing above the local results. They're the top listing in their local results. They're the first listing in the in the top black bar. That they're just killing it, right? And then you click on the Yelp result there, or the whatever local listing, and they're the top one on that. And it's just like, man, how did they achieve that? How did they become such a dominant force? And so my presentation is really, what are those people doing? Not what's everybody else doing. How do I get my result into a local 6-pack or 10-pack or whatever, or how do I move up? I want to talk about domination. How do you become that local brand that dominates? And so I found, probably 24 examples of those people in different US metros, and then I'm digging into kind of like 5 things that I see from each of those.
Okay. And you think it's probably like people that are just into the topic and they just found their way within there, or do you think they had like the same person help, or the same agency?
I think a lot of the time, actually, it turns out that a ton of what gets them that positive stuff, well, a bunch of things, but 2 of the things I'll be talking about tomorrow. One is consistent, continued investment in experimental forms of marketing. Like, no matter when it is, they're trying everything from Groupon to Foursquare to this other local listing service to producing a video to having a blog. They're trying a lot of stuff. They're failing at most of it, but they're trying, right? They're going way beyond what you would think a local small business would invest in marketing. They're just putting an inordinate amount of additional effort into their online marketing. The second thing is they are almost always the same people who have an extremely remarkable product and service, right? So just their offline marketing is powerful, right? You go to, so one of the examples I have is Molly Moon's Ice Cream here in Seattle.
Okay.
And while you're here, you should give them a try.
Okay.
Because the ice cream is just really effing tasty.
Okay.
Like, it's just a lot better than most ice cream places, and it's a fun environment. Their flavors are really creative.
Okay.
The staff is cool.
Are they somewhere close to Pike Market, or?
Yeah, let's see. There's locations throughout the city. You should.
Okay, so there's more.
I think they have
location.
4 or 5 locations now.
Okay.
They started with just 1 in Wallingford, and then they've been expanding because it's just a hit. I mean, when they opened their Wallingford location, there was lines out the door.
You would think like ice cream is nothing new, right?
Ice cream's nothing new, but
I thought.
Right, they do something remarkable with it. Another good example. I found this. I've never been to Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a smaller U.S. metro.
Wouldn't know where it is.
There's this one spa in Tulsa that I saw mentioned in a magazine, and I was curious. I saw them mentioned, and so I went and did a search for Tulsa spas. They're the #1 organic result. They're the first listing in Yelp and in SpaFinder.com, which rank above the local results. They're the first one in the local pack. I mean, they're like 3 of the 4 top results. Just incredible. And then they're in all these services too. So
how can you understand why their service is better than others?
I went and I looked and I started reading the reviews from people, and I saw They do run a blog. I don't think it's a great blog, right? But they tried video stuff. They've clearly tried content marketing. They run social accounts. They tweet at people. They Facebook message, right?
Like how many spas do that?
How many spas do that?
But do you think that there has to be like a certain online agility, or do you think that's kind of everybody should have to know their way around the internet? Because especially with SMBs, like with your clients, it's not like every SMB, like, yeah, internet is great, I'll do it all the time.
But this is where I think a presentation is powerful. The presentation is not saying everyone should do this. The presentation is saying, do you want to be the 1 out of 100 in your niche that dominates like this? Here's how you can do it. And 99 of your competitors will not even try. They'll be like, man, I don't have time for this. But you can be that one, and here's how. I think that's a more exciting message. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good finding. Good. Also good story. I really like it.
So that's how I come up with presentation.
Nice. Like totally different topic. Like besides the kind of the classical SMB and the enterprise, what about the publishing industry? The ones that earn out of advertising. They seem to, as far as my guesswork, my looks into the future, I think there's tough times ahead of them. I would guess, because of the knowledge graph and all the kind of structured data that you can provide with it. Because
I think they have a lot of risks on a bunch of factors, right? And what I see is a desperate need to provide value and user experience beyond merely answers to questions. If answers to questions are all you can give with your content, Google's going to disintermediate you, right? They're going to take that traffic, they're going to show the one answer that is, the answer, and you're kind of out of it. On the other hand, if what you're providing is a level of analysis, a level of emotional connection and emotional writing, a community and a sense of passion around a topic, a very, very unique interface and way of presenting that material, I think you're going to be just fine. I mean, an example that everyone uses in this field is 538, right? And I think what the team there has put together is just incredible. Right? I will read a 538 article that's linked to anywhere just because I see the brand name and I go, oh man, I know this is going to be good. If it's on anything that I care about, I know it's going to be good when I get there. That's something Google can't disintermediate.
Sure, because
right?
they're going to go there.
I would subscribe anyway. I would find it even if Google banned them, right? And so Google is working that out. I think the New York Times actually put together a wonderful piece on content strategy that's worth every publisher's time to read if they haven't already, right? Because it was leaked.
Yeah, that's what I thought, like this presentation that leaked.
Yeah, and I mean, leaked. I think they knew it was going to get out, which is fine. But, regarding that, I mean, they were
the
talking
acting is
about,
not as smart as the talking yet, I thought, when I was browsing through it.
Yeah, they're not there yet, but
that's their plan.
That's their plan, and I think that is the roadmap, right? That shows you how to become a publisher that is beyond merely, what I'd call, an SEO farm.
Yeah, but then again, because for years they have been learning to kind of optimize for this, source of free traffic, and now they kind of have to emancipate from that, or?
I think the beautiful thing is there's convergence between what users love, what they share, what resonates with them, and what Google wants in their index. And those two things are getting closer and closer together. So as a publisher, what you used to have to do was optimize for these people differently than you optimized for Google. Now, a lot of convergence. You're basically targeting the same thing.
All right. So what about content marketing? It seems like the uber buzzword. It seems like everybody's talking content marketing. I mean, you see the big advertising agencies, they're doing content marketing.
And we were doing it back when it was old school.
I know.
99, we were content marketers.
But you hear the same argument. You hear it from advertising people. They're saying, well, we put recipes on your cornflake box. That was content marketing. So you see everybody claiming it. We were doing it in the old days, like the PR agencies. Like, tell me one PR agency that can't prove they did content marketing 20 years ago. So like everybody used to do it always. It seems.
Recipes on a cornflakes box, that is not content marketing.
I agree, but
it is not. What I will give you, what is absolutely content marketing, and started I think in the 1700s, late 1700s, was the Guinness Book of World Records. Now that is some old school content marketing. Right? The folks at Guinness basically said, hey, how do we keep people at bars longer? How do we like hold their interest? Hey, let's come up with this, right? And what they saw was a bunch of their customers drinking Guinness and fighting over who had the biggest, win in baseball history, or in, at the time, I don't know what the Irish were playing, but what, some sport or another, or who can throw the boulder the furthest. I don't know. And so they came out with this Guinness Book of World Records, and they put one in every bar in Ireland, and then in the UK, and then it came to the US. And so people were fighting about it. They could pull out the Guinness Book of World Records.
But isn't it?
That is content marketing, brother.
I think it's just a part of it, because I think it's much like a. So for me, I from my humble perspective, I think there's two parts in it. Like there's on the one hand there has to be this marketable content, and on the other side there has to be the marketing of the content, and that's kind of what makes it the combination, because that's why the recipes on the cornflakes box, from my perspective, are not content marketing, because yes, there are some additional content to the product, but they were not made so you could do specific marketing for this content, right?
Whereas the Guinness Book of World Records is essentially...
Exactly, it is marketable, but they were not marketing it specifically, right?
They were saying, come to the bar.
Okay.
And come to the bar, and there's the Guinness Book of World Records. Here you can read it. And then eventually you could buy your own copy. That was, I think, a few hundred years later. Definitely many decades later. But the whole idea was that the content itself was pulling you in, and the content was keeping you there. And by the way, the content was made by the producers. But it was essentially free, right? You could come into the bar and read the Guinness Book of World Records, or go to your local bartender and be like, hey, settle this bet that Andre and I are having. So it's pretty old school. But yes, I hear you. I think there's a lot of desire to claim we were the first content marketers, or content marketing been around. The difference, I think the real difference today is even 5 or 10 years ago, you did not have nearly the quantity or depth of people sharing content as part of their daily activity. Right? Like maybe that bartender back in the 1800s told a few people that he had this Guinness Book of World Records, but he's 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. Today, you've got 25% of Americans under 35 who are sharing content as part of their daily activity. They're doing it every day, and they're reaching far more people than that bartender ever did.
Do you think there's going to be like an eclipse at some point in time? It's going to go the other way around, because now it seems like everybody's like this publisher pushing stuff, but you could one could.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I think it might be part of self-identity for the foreseeable human future. It would not surprise me if in 100 years what we share is simply a part of our identity. It's how we define ourselves. It's how we announce our social status and our proclivities to the world around us.
So it's actually like a very, very, psychological need that this.
I mean, it's something we've always done. We just did not have a platform whereby we could see it from everyone, right? You would only know when you and I went out to dinner together, and I told you about what I read and what I thought. Yeah. So I can see it being
there
long term. Yeah.
So because it could make sense that there will be a version of it that's not going to be public, but instead like this a part of it moving to share within smaller groups.
Well, and Facebook is that now, right? You're sharing essentially only with the people who are your friends, if you so choose. Google Plus is like that with circles. Secret is like that, kind of in reverse, right? So yes, I think there will be many networks that have different mechanics, and that people will gravitate to the ones that appeal to them, and that's all fine and well. But all that it means is dramatically more sharing. Sharing is a part of human existence and technology-enabled life, and thus a tremendous additional benefit to marketers and brands who can figure out ways to create content that lots of people will spread for them.
Do you think that because that will kind of make brands the new publishers?
I think that's already true. I
True.
think brands are the new publishers.
But do you think there is additional marketing necessary for the content that is created? Or do you think it markets itself if it's good enough?
Well, okay. For the 1 in 1,000 pieces of content that are really just good enough, that have a high enough viral coefficient such that if I share it with only 2 or 3 people, they will help it resonate throughout the web and it'll just spread like wildfire, right? I mean, we've all seen the tweet that one guy sent that...
Did you see the CIA tweet?
Yeah, right. Right. Good example.
It was really good at
It was good, right? So
everybody saw it.
They didn't need very many followers to have everybody see it, right? Or the tweet that the White House aide guy sent about killing Bin Laden, right? Like that, everybody knew that Bin Laden had been killed 4 hours before it was officially announced, 8 hours before it was officially announced, because that one tweet went everywhere. And he wasn't followed by very many people. But those kinds of things, there's some type of content that does market itself. The vast majority, 99.9% of content must be marketed actively.
But isn't that exactly that? I agree on, but I think that's kind of strongly underestimated and strongly, not emphasized enough in the communication about the topic, because the PR guys.
I'm totally with you. Totally with you.
Because the PR guys, the advertising guys, they push this great piece of content where you think, wow, that could be marketable, and then it just stands there and waits and sits and nothing happens. And it seems that's where our nationals, our, let's say, integrational, in our kind of core skill set from an SEO perspective, would
that is what we were built for, right?
Exactly.
SEOs are built to help content spread. Exactly. And that was, in the early days, right, it was through search engines, but it was also through those early social platforms like Dig and Reddit, StumbleUpon. Nowadays it's via social media, it's via outreach, direct, email, on social, broadcast, community building. That's our world, right? And so I think there's, if you want a piece of content to spread far and wide across the web, you want an SEO.
So do you think that in the future that you'll be kind of have these worlds that have been kind of developing from different backgrounds to the topic of content marketing? Do you think that advertising agencies will be working together with SEO agencies to really?
We see some of that already, but
because it would say I don't know the other part that's kind of missing. If they cooperate, they're parallelly saying I don't know the whole thing.
Right, and I think there's a little bit. I think this goes in 2 ways. One, people who specialize and love their specialization will continue to stay specialized and will be called upon for those specific projects. And then there's people who will become more generalists, and they might not call themselves SEOs or ad agencies or PR agencies. They might call themselves marketing agencies or content marketing agencies, right? If content marketing becomes as big as it seems like it's becoming now, such that they take all of those tactics and all of those specializations and apply them to amplifying content's reach.
OMReport and Andre Alpa would like to thank you for your attention. You can get more episodes on www.omreport.de.